Hello, I'm Monsignor Jim Lisante. Today on Personally Speaking, I'll be talking about mercy and forgiveness and sin. Please stay with us. Hello, I'm Monsignor Jim Lisante. You are listening to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, and today I'm also going to be your guest. Instead of interviewing another, I'm going to talk about one of the things that I think every priest in America and around the world deals with on a regular basis, which is the struggle to understand the nature of sin, both the need for people to embrace forgiveness, not just from God, but from one another and for one another. Hello, I'm Monsignor Jim Lisante. I have had the privilege for many years of being invited around the country to talk about something called divine mercy. And it's caused me to look into the background of how this movement, this cause got started. And as many of you know, there was a Polish cloistered sister, Sister Faustina, who felt that she had a message from God. And it was an unusual message, not just in that she wrote the message in her diary, but that she also received, through the spiritual awakening, an image of Jesus with arms open wide, and out of his heart, out of his sacred heart, flowed a sense of mercy, a ray of mercy for the whole world. Anyway, she was someone who was respected within small circles in Poland until Pope John Paul II became our Holy Father. And because he was from Poland and was aware of her testimony and the experience of the revelation of divine mercy, he, on a much wider scale, brought her message to the whole world. Now she is Saint Faustina, and her message of divine mercy is one that is shared and gives hope to so many around the world. I want to talk about it because I think mercy and an understanding of God's mercy and our need to be merciful to other people is one of the roads we can take universally to find peace, to find joy, to find an end to the violence and the division which so perpetrates our world. Let's go back, first of all. What Sister Faustina was trying to tell us is that Jesus forgives, and he really forgives powerfully and always. One of the most powerful images, I think, for many of us when we read the Gospels is the story of the woman caught in adultery, because you have there a great example of the law is on the side of those who wanted to stone her to death. They had the legal right to do it, but was it the merciful thing to do? Was it the forgiving thing to do? And you know what Jesus does? He challenges the crowd. Look, if you have no sin, throw the first stone. And then we're told from the oldest to the youngest, they drop their stone and they walk away. But here's the key. The woman, in fact, was guilty of adultery, pretty serious stuff. But then Jesus says to her, has anyone judged or condemned you? And she looks around and realizes they're all gone. And she says, no one, Lord. And he says, then neither do I. Go in peace and don't do this sin again. And I think that touches on one of the essential elements of mercy. God forgives all the time, even the most wretched part of our nature. But he also expects us to be delighted because he's merciful and to change the course of our lives. Mercy isn't just some free gift that we're given and then you can go back to sinning time and time again, but rather it's given to us with the understanding that we're going to use this second opportunity or third opportunity, this new chance that God gives us through his divine mercy, to say, I'm going to try to redirect my life. I'm not going to make the mistakes I've made before. I don't know if many priests have had this experience, I know I have, of having sometimes the same people come back time and time again with the same sins. And it's a pretty tough position to be in as a priest because, you give the person their absolution, their penance, but the whole idea is that there has to be a firm purpose of amendment. In other words, I know my sin, I confess my sin, God forgives me through the intervention of the priest on Jesus' behalf, and then the key is that I will make a firm purpose of amendment. I will amend or change or redirect my life. I remember having the experience of one particular sinner who had the same thing. I'm unfaithful, I'm unfaithful, I'm unfaithful. The next week, come back, well, I was unfaithful again with this other person. And then sooner or later, you got to say, as I know I found myself saying, you're using confession as like an eraser on a chalkboard. You sin, then you erase it, then you can go back to writing on the board again, instead of redirecting your life. One of the things that's great about God, and Jesus in particular, as the manifestation of God, is that he forgives us, as he did that woman caught in adultery. But he really, really expects us to take the mercy, the opportunity for mercy, and to try to change the direction of our lives. Now, there's another part of this to mention. We've got to be grateful, right? If we've got a God who, no matter how awful our sin, is willing to forgive, and that's our God. No matter what we do, no matter how bad we may think it is, he is filled with mercy and willing to give us another chance. So if we have an always forgiving God, and we love that, right? We want to be forgiven. We are delighted that my sin is erased, if you will, that as soon as we remember our sins, God forgets. We're obligated then, and this is a tough hook for all of us. If I love getting God's mercy, and I do, and you probably do too, then aren't I obligated as a follower of Christ to show mercy then to others? And this is where we trip ourselves up. How many of us haven't been happy to know, thank God, I went to confession, I confessed my sins, I'm free of that sin, I'm someone who's benefited from God's mercy. But someone hurt me, and I will never forgive them. We can't have it both ways, or we shouldn't. We can't say I'm so grateful to God for the fact that no matter how awful I've been, he's full of mercy and love. But I, on the other hand, will continue to hold a grudge. I, on the other hand, will never forgive. What that person did to me is beyond forgiveness. Can you imagine how you and I would feel if God said to us, wait, what was that third sin? Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's a bridge too far. No mercy for you. No forgiveness for you. You're condemned. None of us want that, right? Then why are we who accept God's mercy and are delighted to be forgiven, unwilling in turn to forgive those who hurt us? And the only way to truly, I think, enjoy God's mercy is to share it with others as well. Which brings me to the multiple sin candidate, and that's many of us, right? Who time and time again, we want the mercy of God, we hope for the mercy of God, but we're willing to accept it, but not truly in our heart of hearts to forgive ourselves. Again, many priests will probably tell you they've had this experience where someone will come in and say, the truth is this sin I told you, Father, is one I've told 5 other priests. And I'll say, well, did you go back and do that sin again? No, but this is from a sin I committed 30 years ago. Well, did the priest give you absolution and penance? Yeah, all 5 of them did. Then what are you back here for? Well, I may have gotten the church's forgiveness, I may have gotten God's forgiveness, but I can't forgive myself. That sin that we hold on to because we judge that it's so serious and so awful that even if God thinks he forgives us, he's wrong. This is beyond forgiveness. But here's the problem, right? The last thing we want is for one old sin to lead to new sin. And I'm going to suggest to you that when we've been forgiven and we've gone to confession and we've received the mercy of God and Jesus has said, it's over, let it go, and we won't let it go, that we may be guilty of another sin, and that's the sin of blasphemy. Blasphemy is when we don't let God be God. Blasphemy is when we decide we know better than God. Best example, obviously, is the story of Adam and Eve. God gives them this Garden of Eden. It's got it all. It's the best of the best. And then he says, look, just one thing, don't eat the fruit of that tree. One simple guideline is what God asks. So what do? Well, we got to violate the one thing he asked us not to violate. And in the same way, and that, by the way, it's an example of blasphemy. They were choosing to be bigger than God. He may have thought we were to stay away from that tree, but we know better than God. And we do the same thing. We beat ourselves up time and time again. We've been forgiven. God's mercy has been demonstrated to us, but we refuse to believe that I'm truly forgiven. Once we remember our sin and we bring it to God and he forgives us sacramentally, it is over. Let it go. You can't second guess God. You got to trust that God knows what he's doing, and that if Jesus, who is God, says to us, hey, go in peace and sin no more. But that sin that you confessed, it's finished. It's gone. It's history. that we've got to accept that and not second-guess God, lest we become arrogant in believing that we know better than God. And guess what? We don't. We'll be right back with more of Personally Speaking in just a moment.
I'm in almost every school bus and classroom. I go to school with your children. We say the Pledge of Allegiance together. You've seen me around the neighborhood, and you've told me I'm a pretty good kid. Well, I'm one out of every 4 children in America, and I'm struggling with hunger. This problem is closer than you think. My teacher tells me we could grow up and be whatever we want. I want to grow up and be someone who doesn't go to bed hungry. There's enough food in this country to feed everyone. Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help. Every dollar you donate helps provide 7 meals for kids like me, quietly struggling with hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Personally Speaking. I'm Monsignor Jim Lisante, your host. Today we're talking about something we all struggle with, which is the nature of sin, why we do the things we do, and how to grow from the great gift, which is forgiveness. Okay, let's talk about sin specifically, because we don't talk about sin enough, I think. You know, we've decided that sin's not a big deal, but it is. It still paralyzes us and keeps us from being, as my friend Matthew Kelly would say, the best version of ourselves. There are essentially 3 ways that we sin, okay? Let's think about this for all of us. The 3 categories of sin are: we sin in thought, we sin in word, we sin in deed. Thought, word, and deed. Let's go through those. What's a sin of thought? Jimmy Carter, that great ex-president, he gave an interview years ago, maybe unwisely, to Playboy magazine, but he said some stuff that was good there. And one of the things he said, they said, "Have you ever cheated on your wife?" And he said, "Bodily, no, I never have. But I have, let my mind wander, and I have been unfaithful in my mind, in my heart. I've been unfaithful." And of course, lots of people who didn't like his Christian approach to things made fun of him. Oh my God, this guy is holding himself accountable for sex that he never had outside of marriage. What's the big deal? But Jimmy Carter was wonderfully onto something. We don't have to do something wrong in order to sin. What's in our mind is also important. So if I have resentment, jealousy, envy, lusting for people that I shouldn't be lusting for, these are examples of where, in my mind, I've got stuff that keeps me from being the best version of myself. Certainly prejudice would be one, right? You may never utter a word against anyone else because of their color, their religion, their culture, but in your mind and in your heart, you don't like them. You don't like the differences. You wish they'd go away. We don't want to be one of them. We don't want to have them in our lives because they're different from us. That's a sin of thought. So envy, resentment, jealousy, holding a grudge, prejudice, bias, looking down on people, condescension, negative thoughts about other people that we don't even know but we judge. These can be sins of thought. Sins of word, pretty self-evident. God gave us the gift of speech to build up. You know and I know we awfully, time and time again, use the gift of speech to tear down. Gossip, negativity, cursing, lying, swearing, taking God's name in vain, saying things that are bigoted and prejudiced. These are clearly not the purpose God had in mind when He gave us the ability to communicate. And yet, what comes out of our mouth? I've joked with my own congregation about my own problem with road rage. Nobody hears what I call them when I'm in my car alone, but He does. Upstairs, God hears, and I think He's saying to me, "Monsignor Jim, you can do better. I didn't give you that mouth so you could be a potty mouth. I gave you that mouth so you would use it to build up, to praise, to encourage, to affirm." Sins of word are when we use the gift of speech wrongly. Sins of deed? Well, a deed is an action we take that's contrary to the will of God. So if you're stealing, if you're unfaithful, if you embrace the culture of abortion, if you cheat on your wife, you cheat on your husband, to physically hurt another person. How much abuse do we have going on? Sexual, physical, emotional abuse. Those are things we do that compromise the dignity of other people. And it's wrong. It's sinful. So any deed where we take an action that we know, especially if you live by the guideline of the Ten Commandments, we know to be wrong. These are the ways we sin, 3 ways: in thought, in word, in deed. Anytime I go to confession, I've got to take a look at all 3 categories. And interestingly enough, one of the other categories of sin that people sometimes fail to mention, I've almost never heard it in confession, would be the sins of omission. And these are the things we should have done, but we didn't do. The good we might have accomplished, but didn't. You see someone being bullied, and you know you probably should step into the breach, but you don't because you don't want to get involved. You see someone being treated with derision or prejudice. You don't want to get involved, so you step back. How many of us have inadvertently, or advertently, I should say, adverted our eyes so that we don't have to look at people who are homeless or uncomfortable or disabled or different from us? Avoidance. Avoidance can be a sin. The good we should have done but didn't do. You know, the woulda, coulda, shouldas that we're going to have to one day answer to God for. Things we should have done. Sins of omission. Missing the opportunity to accomplish the good with our lives that we might have. Remember Jesus gives that parable about burying your treasure? I think that's a great example of the sins of omission. He gives you and me specifically, gifts and abilities that he gives to no one else the way he gives to us. But there's a hook. He's going to ask us at the end of time, you know that gift I gave you? What'd you do with it? Did you use it? Is the world a better place because you lived in the world? Or did you hold on to that gift and never really share it with the wider community because you were interning, you were selfish? That could be the sin of omission. Kinds of sin, well, we've all grown up with this. You know, we learned about venial sin, the lighter sins, if you will. They don't please God, but they're not going to break any kind of relationship with God either. And the serious sin. You know it's wrong. I know it's wrong. God knows it's wrong. And we need to atone for it. Serious sins, some stuff that we've done that we're not proud of in our lives. And then there's what we call mortal sin. And I think when I was growing up, we overused that terminology. If I give you a mortal gunshot wound, it means I kill you. It takes an awful lot to kill or to try to kill our relationship with God. It's pretty severe to commit a mortal sin. So we should probably not overuse that, you know. So in the old days, oh my God, I ate a hamburger on Friday of Lent. It's not a mortal sin. It may be a venial sin. Maybe if you did it on purpose, it's a serious sin, but it's not a mortal sin. We have to use that where it's appropriate, where I have struck out at God or attempted to sever my relationship with God. I would suggest there are certainly things out there that do that, you know. And I think one of the things is for those who embrace political correctness in our world. You know, when a guy or gal in politics says, I know as a Catholic that abortion is the killing of a human life, and I wouldn't do it, but if you want to do it, it's okay. Now, objectively, we say, wait a second, if it's killing, it's killing. It's not just killing for a Catholic, it's killing. So if you say it's okay for somebody else, you're standing by and allowing that to happen. That's pretty serious stuff. That's pretty serious and might be, in fact, an opportunity to embrace a mortally sinful thing, especially, I think, for these politicians who are going to have to answer to God someday. Wait, you promoted the termination of children? Or how about in our own church? I mean, honest to God, you got to wonder about some of these leaders in the church who did the cover-up of the abuse of children. This is the Jesus who says in the gospel, woe to him who hurts the little ones. Better a millstone should be tied around his neck and he be thrown into the river than to hurt one of the little ones. So whether it's the unborn child that the politician justifies the killing of through the 9 months of pregnancy, my God, you know that Jesus isn't going to be happy about that. Or the churchman who says, look, for the good of the corporation, I'm going to cover this thing up and allow children to continue to be abused. Oh, my God. Can you imagine Jesus being happy with that? I can't. So we got to seriously think about what we mean by the various kinds of sin and look closely at what is the most serious and get our lives in order to change directions. Okay, here's another thing I hear a lot from people. God is merciful. Why can't I just talk to God? Why in the world do I have to go to confession? Why do I have to talk to a priest? He's just a human being like the rest of us. And there's some truth in that. And that's precisely why he's a good person to talk to. We're people. People talk to and need to talk to people. You know, this wasn't something, confession, invented by a pope or a bishop or some priest who had nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon. This was from the man himself. Jesus says to the apostles, the first priests, I empower you to forgive people's sins. If you forgive them on earth, they're forgiven not only on earth, but in heaven as well. If you don't forgive them on earth, then neither are they forgiven in heaven. This is the man himself. Now, why would Jesus do that? Because he knew that people have a need to articulate what's inside our souls. And we need someone to really listen, a person. And we need a person to say you're forgiven. Many of us remember when you're younger, you fall in love and you kind of know that person that you're dating is in love with you. But don't you remember the incredible feeling you had the first time the words were said, I love you? Or who of us has not been hurt by another person? And some people just presume that forgiveness is a given. But do you know how great it feels when somebody you love who's hurt you says, by the way, I need to say this to you. What I did to you before was awful. I'm so sorry. I hope you can forgive me. You mean the world to me. And I'm really, really sorry that I hurt you. Now, we may have known it already, intuited it. And yet, the words, I love you, the words, I forgive you, the words, I'm sorry, matter to us very, very much. I think Jesus knew that. So when you get into the confessional and you say to this priest, bless me, Father, for I have sinned, it's a wonderful thing because you're purging yourself in front of a compassionate, empathetic, alter Christi, other Christ. And just as Christ would say, it's okay, you're forgiven. That's the job of the priest as well. We're people, and psychology, one of the reasons it's a booming business for the psychiatrist and the psychologist and the family counselor is because people need to talk, to get it out, to put it up front and to examine it. I think for a lot of us, too, when it comes to confession, we get into what I call an automatic kind of grocery list approach. I curse, I lie, I swear, I lose my patience. But I think for a lot of us, and if you ever get a chance to go back to confession, I'd encourage everyone to do this. I believe for most of us, there is in the corner of our soul a locked closet. And in that locked closet is a sin we committed in the past that we are ashamed of and embarrassed by. We can't believe that we were dumb enough to do what we did. And we never bring it to confession. It's that big enchilada we hide because we think it's beyond mercy, it's beyond forgiveness. Nothing is beyond God's mercy. Nothing is beyond God's forgiveness. And we need to take it out of that locked closet and expose it to the light of God's grace and His mercy, and that's the only way we're going to get better. It's the only way we're going to be the persons we're called on to be by God. If we let it stay locked, it's going to fester, it's going to eat at us, it's never going to go away, and we're not going to become the people that we're supposed to be. We have this great gift. The Protestant psychoanalyst Erik Erikson, one of the great writers of psychology, but even he says in one of his books, the Catholic Church is far advanced from many other churches in giving its members the necessary opportunity to articulate guilt. We need to say words that matter. We need to tell people that we love, that we really love them. When we do something wrong, we need to tell people, I'm sorry. When we've been asked to forgive somebody, it's important to say, I do forgive you. And those things, those words that we say, free us in so many ways. Let's go back to the sacrament. For the sacrament to be what it's called on to be, the instrument for God's mercy, there are 4 elements in the sacrament that we need to have. One of the first things is we need to have confession, which is to say we need to say what it is that we did wrong. I can't have in my heart all these serious sins, but I'm just going to tell the priest the tip of the iceberg. I got to trust him enough to tell him the real stuff, to truly say these are the things that I've done, to put it all out there, no holding back. And to really expose who we are as sinners to the mercy of God. And, it's interesting. I remember one day a woman came and she said to me, I got nothing to say. I've been living a wonderful life. I try to be a holy, good person. Really, I'm just here, for the grace of the sacrament. But I have no sins to tell you. But, she said, the man coming in next is my husband. Let me tell you about his sins. And of course, I had to say to her, hey, it's not your job to confess his sins. If he wants to do that, he can do that. But you're just here for you. This is your time with someone who works for Jesus to say that if you have sin, this is an opportunity to purge your heart, purge your soul, and to get spiritually well again. So, first thing we need in terms of the elements of the sacrament, confession. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. These are the things I have done. One of the things that keeps people from going to confession, I find, is the reality of time. If I haven't gone in 20 years to confession, if I haven't gone for 30 years to confession, then maybe, just maybe, it's possible that I'm going to feel awkward going. Don't feel awkward. Just come. Doesn't matter if you went last week or you went 30 years ago. Just come. Second element is contrition. Once I confess my sins, I need to be sorry for them. Don't tell me a sin if you're not really sorry for having done it. Part of what makes confession is the willingness to be contrite, to be sorry. The third element is penance. The priest is going to give you something to do to make up for the sin. Many priests go with having you say Our Fathers or Hail Marys, but many priests too will have you do something positive to negate the sin that you did. So if somebody says, I steal, I may tell them they got to give money to the poor. If somebody says they've been particularly heinous to their wife or husband, I may ask them to go out of their way to accomplish something good. And then finally, absolution. Absolution is when the priest, in the name of Jesus, says, it's over, it's forgiven, it's done. You're freed from your sin. And our job is to feel that weight lifted off our shoulders and to rejoice and leave the confessional and leave that priest's presence delighted that we have a God who is divine mercy. I can't say this enough. There is nothing you have ever done, there is nothing you will ever do that is beyond the mercy of God. We should rejoice in that fact and use the great gift of sacramental reconciliation. Use it to begin our lives again. I spoke last weekend to, 50 engaged couples who were on pre-Cana, and I said to them, look, before you get married, go to confession so that you can, on the day of your wedding, say, all the past, it's over and done with. I'm forgiven, I am a new creation, and I'm bringing that new creation into my marriage because I want to begin again. I love the end of the wonderful tale, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. When he wakes up on Christmas morning, he realizes he's not dead, that the three spirits did help him to change his heart and his mind. And he says, I'm alive. I'm alive and I've got a chance to change, and I will not be the man I was. That's the spirit of rejoicing every one of us should have as we leave the great gift, which is sacramental reconciliation. And the reason that sacrament has its power is because you have a God who's looking you right in the eyes now and saying, I know what you've done, I know where you've been, I know the mistakes you've made, I know the depth of your sin, and I love you, and I forgive you. Accept my love and accept my forgiveness, rejoice, and go on with your life. I'm Monsignor Jim Lisante. You've been listening to Personally Speaking. We'll be with you again next week. Thank you for listening. As we end today's program, I want to thank you all for being with us. If you have any questions or comments about the show, you can send them to me through my website, which is www.closeencountertv.com. Again, www.closeencountertv.com. You can also find on that website, Personally Speaking episodes from the past. Just go to the top of the page and push the radio button. Please be sure to visit the site and encourage your families and friends to do the same. You can also listen to past Personally Speaking episodes by going to www.ollmp.org, ollmp.org. And you'll not only get our shows, but Monsignor Jim's weekly homilies. I'm privileged to serve as host and executive producer, Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Jandovitz. Our engineer is Rocco Vitolo, and our audio facility is Creative Media Design in New York City. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.